All right, so hello everyone. Thank you so much for joining us today. I hope you can all hear me properly. So we are very happy to welcome you to the kickoff of this CCAC MRAP NDC announcement virtual workshop series that will go on for the next 2 months. So just to say before I briefly introduce the agenda and turn to the presenter, that you will be muted for the first part of this session. You will then be able to turn your mic on for the Q&A session. But while you are muted, we very much invite you to ask any question you may have in the chat during the presentation. So very, very glad to get started with this new series of the Methane Roadmap Action Program webinars. Today on the agenda for this kickoff, we're going to open with a brief introduction from Martina Otto, the head of the Climate and Clean Air Coalition Secretariat. Martina will be followed by an introduction from Cristina Lobilo Borrero, with Director of Energy Policy at DG Energy for the European Commission. Then my colleague Nathan Bockford-Parnell from the CCAC Secretariat will briefly introduce you all to the Methane Roadmap Action Program, and very much to the synergies of this program with the NDC enhancement work. That's going to be very much the focus of this whole series. And then we'll turn to Anna Maria Kleimeyer, another colleague, who will discuss more some recommendation for enhancement on methane in NDC 3.0. Then we'll have the Q&A and we'll close the session. So with this, I would like to turn to you, Martina. Thank you very much for being with us today.
Fantastic. Thank you so much, Sophie. And a warm welcome to everybody to this new edition of the MRAP series. Not only it's extremely timely because we're all looking at the review year of the NDCs, but also it's a direct response to some requests that we had received from countries saying, well, all good and well, we've understood we need to do this, but please provide as much support as you can to actually doing it as well. So it's a direct response. Maybe with that, we can go to the next slide and have a look at that. And the first slide that we have is really a quick recap to frame things. That's the Global Methane Pledge. Obviously, I think you're all very well aware. It is a global effort, it's a voluntary effort, and it's a collective effort to reduce global methane emissions by at least 30% below 2020 levels by 2030. It was launched in 2020 by the EU and the US and was sort of a direct flow from the UNEP CCAC Global Methane Assessment that we provided, with which we provided the scientific underpinning as well for this political commitment. And it has grown immensely to now 157 participating countries and the European Commission. We have a series of GMP champions as well. And that is in addition to the co-conveners, the EU and the US, also Canada, Germany, Japan, Micronesia, and Nigeria. The GMP does provide platforms for participants to join forces and deliver landmark progress, including the energy pathway, the waste pathway, the food and agriculture pathway, as well as a stream on plans and policies, a stream on data, and a stream on finance. So sector-wise and topical. And really, I mean, today we're looking at how we can encourage everybody to develop and update their national methane action plans or roadmaps further. With that, we can go to the next slide, please. And the CCAC, a quick word on us as well, not in all detail, but the relation to the GMP. So we're the first point of call for GMP countries, provide the secretariat services to the GMP, and we have a whole support system in place to help countries to deliver on methane abatement. And that includes policy support, it includes institutional strengthening, sector transformation, and really, again, the backbone, the policy relevancy research and analysis that we do provide. And obviously, this roadmap program is a reflection of that. And the idea here is to support the development and the implementation of transparent and consistent national methane roadmaps. With that, we can go to the next slide. And here we did the reflection on the NDCs and the BTRs, so the biannual transparency reports under the UNFCCC, and just to reflect quickly on the role of methane and other SLCP action in light of the urgency. And we've seen that coming out at the last COP. There was a non-CO2 summit element as well that came with a clear sort of call. The global stocktake made that very clear as well. And just to restate the obvious that we found, we need the dual action stream between SLCP action and the deep decarbonization to make it, to keep 1.5 as the Paris Agreement goal alive. And just to highlight as well that, well, you've seen certainly the scientists' reports coming out that there is a over 60% likelihood that we might hit 1.5 over the next 5 years. And if we look at that, the role of methane is ever more important because methane action is the way to reduce warming in the near term. And that has to do with the higher global warming potential over a shorter period of time and the shorter period of time in the atmosphere before it decomposes. And that's really, really important to keep in mind. Can we just go one back, please? I was still on that one. So that is really, thank you. So that's really the framing, why it's so important, why 2024 is a pivotal year, also for all the GMP participants to demonstrate, on the one side, real policy progress and readiness for implementation. So we've given ourselves quite a bit of time to ease in, to put everything in place. I keep talking about scaffolding to be put in place, and that we now see further progress in the implementation. And just to state here as well, we've seen that methane, for the time being, is still on the rise in terms of emissions. And obviously, we have to bend that curve as fast as we can, particularly as we look at the mid-course milestone of 2025. And here the idea is to also help improve the inclusion of methane in the biannual transparency reports under the UNFCCC, and to improve the inclusion in the next round of the NDCs. And if we say, oh, well, the next round, this is really, if it's not in there, we've really missed the boat. And I want to highlight that very much so, because we look at by when we can bend the curve, and it's therefore really critical. And that's why this year's edition of the MRAP really looks at us with a very strong focus on the BTRs and the NDCs. Now we can go to the next slide. Thank you. And here, so just to recap, every 5 years, ratcheting up. The next one, the next round is due. The status to date is that many countries have started including methane into the NDCs in some form. And what we've seen is, however, a lack in specificity, and that's what we'd like to help address. And that can be in form of inclusion of concrete measures across the key sectors, but also concrete targets, or both. And we'll look at that as we go. And just to state here as well that it's so important to have the inclusion in the NDCs as the political commitment, as giving the sign, because that will help unlock finance as well. I already made a reference to the COP28 non-CO2 summit, so I don't need to repeat that. We are just coming out of a G7 climate, energy and environment ministers meeting, where the communique really recognized as well how critical this year is for action, that we really need 1.5 aligned NDCs, and 1.5 aligned does mean we need to include methane action here as well. There's a specific reference to methane action with an allusion to also international cooperation and to providing support to developing countries, particularly on waste methane, but also to strengthen work on the regulatory side of things as well as market instruments. And I thought that was really interesting in helping framing all this. So that means it's also really important that we have consistent and harmonized inclusion of methane into the reporting, because that will support transparency. There are other transparency efforts out there, obviously, as well, with the data work by IMEO, and that will collectively help us with tracking of progress under the Global Methane Pledge. So both in terms of which kinds of policies, which kinds of regulation, which projects, and then as well what we see in terms of real emissions going down. And I think that was the last slide. Just see. Yes. And with that, I would like to hand over to Christina. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Martina. Good afternoon, Sophia, and everyone. Thank you very much, first of all, for inviting the European Commission to this workshop on Methane Roadmap Action Program. And thank you, Martina, also for your very good detailed presentations. I'm happy today to give our views from the European Commission perspective, and also the broader views on the next steps. So as you all know, the Global Methane Pledge was launched at COP26, was joint initiative US and European Union. It was launched in 2021, and now we have grown up to 155 countries' endorsement now, with Azerbaijan, the last one joining, that we welcome very much this achievement, being also the one hosting the COP this year. We have seen that it started as a global methane movement and continue to be our main overarching framework to take action on reducing methane emissions. From the European Union side, we have, for the first time ever, regulation on methane emission reduction, which means a very significant, ambitious step toward further addressing methane emission and also implementing our GMP commitments. We also see a clear global momentum with the US and Canada as well, adopting national methane regulations, and many countries also developing their own national methane action roadmap. In the last year, the focus has been mainly on establishing the different frameworks and tools necessary to help countries and companies to reduce emission. The Climate and Clean Air Coalition, as well as the International Methane Emission Observatory, are at the core of it, and being the core implementing bodies for all these goals. In particular, the CCAC facilitates the development of national methane emissions roadmaps. And thanks to such initiatives, countries will have guidance and tools to develop their national plans. Workshops like the one today are really helpful to share experiences and to learn from each other on how to improve and implement our goals. At COP28, Martina, as you mentioned, and this is very, very important, the first ever global stocktake at COP took place and marked the most extensive assessment of global action on climate change to date. The next milestone, as you also mentioned, is the renewed national determined contribution in 2025. That will be a very significant steps. And we support, obviously, the inclusion of a methane strategy within the NDCs. And hope that this will be an initiative that most countries will bear in mind and also consider for the update NDCs. The support that the CCAC is now providing with this Methane Roadmap Action Program to enhance methane emission reduction action in the next NDC and advancing national methane action is, in our view, crucial. We need to critically assess and evaluate our progress, which also places data at the core of the national determined contributions. Because NDC and plans have to be turned into action. On this, the International Methane Emission Observatory plays a crucial role as well, helping to put data into the hands of those that can act and accelerate the methane abatement measures. In the last years, we have seen exponential membership of the Oil and Gas Methane Partnership 2.0 or GMP 2.0, which today includes over 140 companies covering around 40% of global production. Another important tool to turn plans into action is the so-called Methane Alert and Response System, which aims to provide satellite data to companies and governments in order to enable effective and more targeted methane abatement measures. I would therefore very much like to thank CCAC and Martina in particular for initiating this workshop series and inviting me today. Our collaboration with the CCAC is crucial in ensuring that we follow through all our pledges. As signatories of the Global Methane Pledge, we all need to do our part to reduce methane emissions by 30% or even more, and to keep the 1.5-degree goal within reach. And I am very much aware that CCAC and GMP community will always be able to count on the support of the European Union in the way forward. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Christina. Thank you very much. That was an amazing way to open this theory and get everyone motivated for what's coming next. So once again, thank you very much, Martina and Christina, for this opening and setting the stage for what's coming next. And without further ado, because we need to keep on time, I'm turning to my colleague Nathan Borgford-Parnell. Nathan, the floor is yours.
Hello, everyone. Good morning, good day, good evening, and good afternoon, depending on where you're joining us in this world. Yeah, my name is Nathan BP. I'm the Science Affairs Lead for the CCAC Secretariat. And I'll try to keep my presentation relatively short. I would like to give a little bit of background and context for how the MRAP program is designed, and how we are pivoting to more explicitly support NDC and BTR transparency and in enhancement this year and next. Next slide, please. So just as a little bit of background, we launched even further background, the Climate and Clean Air Coalition provides secretariat services to the Global Methane Pledge. As Martina said, in particular, we are the first point of entry for GMP countries, and to provide an immediate service to GMP countries, we designed the Methane Roadmap Action Program about 2 years ago now, to help onboard countries that have joined the CCA or joined the GMP but not necessarily have a lot of experience with the Global Methane Pledge, or even CCAC partners who want to more specifically focus on methane action, to be able to take part in a program that works them through a rigorous methodology to identify. No, same slide. Sorry. To identify the level of data and the completeness of data necessary within the national system necessary to support a robust national planning process around methane, and then based on that analysis develop a methane roadmap, which one clearly articulates the country's existing level of ambition and commitments to address methane emissions, and then build on that to increase ambition towards 1.5 consistent levels of methane mitigation. This is the other intention with this is obviously to create a community, or more of a sense of a community within the Global Methane Pledge signatory countries, and which we facilitate in large part through these virtual workshops programs to help you all work from the same methodology, communicate good practice, and ensure collaboration so that we are all feeling energized and well supported to meet the commitments of the 2030 GMP mitigation pledge. I should say within the MRAP program, all ODA eligible countries are eligible to receive support from the CCAC specifically to develop the roadmap action plans or to expand on specific elements of the building blocks which make up the roadmap action plan. And that is regardless of whether or not the GMP country is a CCAC partner, which is a huge resource. Normally, to receive funding from the CCAC, countries have to be members of the CCAC. Next slide, please. So I'm sure many of you have seen this slide before, but very quickly, the MRAP program roadmap methodology is based on 5 core building blocks. These building blocks are designed to allow maximum flexibility in the spirit of the nationally determined contributions, that every country has a different mix of emissions, different capacities for mitigation, different regulatory structures and government structures. So no single roadmap or commitment is going to look the same between countries, but should all contain similar elements. And these are made up in the 5 building blocks, and they include inventories, fully comprehensive inventories, in this case of methane, but hopefully of all greenhouse gases and air pollutants. Followed on the back of the inventories is building block 2, which is analytics. That's to a comprehensive assessment of mitigation opportunities and the economic, human health, climate, and development benefits or impacts of particular choices in technological or policy actions to mitigate methane. Following on that, building block 3 is establishing a target based on a robust analytical process and strong inventories. Building block 4, establishing a clear pathway towards implementation of the measures that lead to the target. And then finally, last but not least, a strong monitoring, reporting, and verification system to ensure regular progress is made towards those targets. We have designed this system based on over a decade of experience of national planning and policy making support that we provide in a more intensive and longitudinal way through our national planning support hub in the CCAC. And we have also designed this system so that it can immediately feed into and support existing reporting and planning and target mandates that countries have already committed to. In this case, in particular, commitments made countries who are signatories to the Paris Agreement of the UNFCCC. And within the Paris Agreement, as Martina described earlier, countries have committed to submit new NDCs every 5 years, which are progressively more ambitious and more inclusive. And within the Paris Agreement, there is an enhanced transparency framework, which really quite radically expands the amount of data and reporting and the regularity of that reporting that countries are now subject to. The first reporting period for which are, in this case, they are reporting the biennial transparency reports, which the first set are due at the end of this year. So as you see, I've labeled here on the building blocks where specifically the elements of these building blocks feed directly into those reporting structures and requirements under the Paris Agreement. Next slide. So I alluded to this a little bit in my introduction, but the purpose of the MRAP program and the methodology that I have outlined is to, in the first instance, very quickly help countries collect the data they need and get a clear understanding of what their current knowledge base is and capacity is in each of their individual circumstances for addressing methane. And in this first instance, identifying gaps is just as valuable as knowing that you have for example, really progressive or comprehensive commitment for methane in a particular sector. So, for example, through this process, we can help countries quickly identify whether or not they have fully comprehensive inventories for methane emissions. And if there are gaps in those emissions inventories, so that maybe they're not sufficient to support an analytical process in building block 2, or maybe it's not sufficient to support the reporting under the BTRs, having identified that gap, we can mobilize CCAC resources or connect countries to other sources of funding or technical assistance to help fill that gap quite quickly. So the ambition with these roadmaps is to first identify strengths and weaknesses, articulate clearly where a country stands and its level of ability and internal capacity for each of the building blocks, and then quickly identify where we can help strengthen capacity and build ambition towards 1.5 consistent levels of mitigation. Next slide. So once countries have identified where there are gaps and strengths and weaknesses, we can quickly begin mobilizing our internal resources to support gap filling and greater ambition. We have a number of tools and technical support mechanisms and policy support mechanisms available immediately to countries, both CCAC partners and GMP signatories, that you can make use of. For the methane roadmap templates, we have a template and a workshop series. This is the kickoff of our first workshop series this year, as well as workbooks to help users identify the main locations for the information needed to fill out each of the building blocks. We provide expert consultation services. We provide national planning support through our broader partnership upon request, as well as policy and regulatory support. We have a technical assistance funding mechanism that countries can apply for between $30,000 and $50,000 per request. That this year is open for GMP and CCAC partner countries to apply to, specifically to help with the NDC and BTR enhancement process through the MRAP workshop. And you can we'll have there's a QR code in the last set of slides here that you can follow to get obtain those resources. Finally, as well, there is an additional set of data that we provide. It's a data service based on the analysis that we produce for the global methane assessment. We have global methane assessment country projections that are available for every country on Earth. Where you do have data gaps or are interested to know what the global modeling community thinks are the greatest mitigation potentials in your countries for particular sectors, subsectors, or broadly for the whole economy, we can provide that data upon request to the GMP partner countries, and you can obtain those by contacting me or by going through the QR code at the end of this presentation. Next slide. I sort of already went through this. I'll go through this a little bit more quickly. More broadly, within the Climate and Clean Air Coalition, we provide technical support and capacity building and access to a greater share of policy experts and similarly aligned countries and funders through our sectoral hubs. We have 7 sectoral hubs. 3 of them in particular are focused on the main sources of methane. So we have an agriculture hub, a waste hub, and a fossil fuel hub. They meet regularly to convene and generate projects or talk about difficulties that they can collectively address. If you are a country partner who's interested in participating in any of these hubs, please do reach out and we will connect you with the hub coordinators. I've already mentioned the Small Scale Expert Assistance Fund that is available. Beyond that, we do provide national capacity building and project funding on a much larger scale than just $50,000 per project through our expression of interest process, but that is only available to CCAC country partners. So if you represent a country that is a member of the GMP but not yet a member of the CCAC, and you would be interested in support or advice on how to join, please do reach out. We'd be happy to facilitate that. Next slide. So as I said, this year we are pivoting towards much more explicit support towards NDC enhancement and full and transparent reporting in the BTRs. And one of the things that we've been doing in support of the NDCs is tracking the current content of the existing NDCs, particularly how they address short-lived climate pollutants, both in their economy-wide targets and in specific measures that are included. So I just want to highlight very quickly, if you look on the bottom left, we are now over 95% of the countries that have submitted nationally determined contributions are including methane in their economy-wide targets, which is really quite fantastic. We'd like to get that to 100%, but it does show that there's broad recognition in the world that methane is an important target, along with the other greenhouse gases to mitigate. And however, if you look at the bar immediately above that, only about a fifth of the NDCs, the current NDCs, include with any real specificity measures specifically targeted at mitigating methane. For example, a measure addressing municipal solid waste methane emissions. Measures which are targeted methane and also include some form of quantified and measurable component that we would consider a target for methane mitigation. That number has been steadily increasing over the last 5 years, but we still are only at a fifth now, and we are really hoping, in particular through this outreach, that we will see that number go up dramatically in this next round of NDCs. I won't cover. The other set of bar graphs shows the breakdown of methane measures, whether they have a quantified component or not, in the agricultural, fossil fuel, and waste sector. And as you can see, we are just barely at 50% for the waste sector and well below that for agriculture and fossil fuels. And so our ambition is to increase all of those metrics in this next round. And to support that, beyond having this workshop series and having the resources of the CCAC and MRAP available to GMP partner countries, we are earnestly working to update and expand the CCAC's guidance, step-by-step guidance on how countries can include methane and all short-lived climate pollutants in their NDCs. And that process is being led by my colleague, Anna Maria Kleinmeyer, who I would like to now pass this over to talk a little bit about where those recommendations are going and what countries can expect from us soon with these guidance. So Anna Maria, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Nathan, and good morning, good afternoon, good evening to everyone. I hope that you are all doing well. I'm going to share my screen so that we can take a look at what the guidance is all about. Give me 1 second. Okay. Well, give me a moment. It's not. I'm having a little bit of an issue here with the screen sharing. 1 moment. Thanks for your patience. Okay. Are you able to see my screen?
Yes.
Okay, great. Okay, so as Nathan pointed out, the CCAC is preparing for countries a support package of guidance on how to enhance the next round of NDCs. To avoid confusion, we like to refer to them as the 2025 NDC, the upcoming round for countries. As you all know, the NDCs are a progressive cycle of pledges that countries are putting together, initiated by the Paris Agreement. And the reason why sometimes we'll hear them referred to as NDC 3.0, the upcoming NDC, is because that takes into consideration the first being the INDC that countries offered with the Paris Agreement in 2015, then 2020 NDC, and those many countries revised that 2020 version, but it's still one version, and then the upcoming 2025. And here at the top of the screen, I've put in a few other elements that contribute to how countries understand not only the specific content of what is expected to be in their NDC, but also the ambition behind that. So the different conferences of the parties that generated decisions that would specifically tell us what is supposed to be in our NDC. So our guidance helps to pull that all together in one place, making it easier for countries to see in a step-by-step manner what is required by the decisions of the Framework Convention. And then we bring in, or we bold in additional recommendations to enhance the NDC by incorporating for general recommendations. The recommendations in the package are that countries should include, or if they already include in their previous NDCs, to strengthen references to non-CO2 mitigation. And that means not only including targets, but also specific actions, measures, policies that countries will include. Second, the guidance recommends that countries integrate air pollution and air quality planning within their NDC. The air quality planning and commitments can significantly strengthen an NDC, not only by providing additional mitigation co-benefits, but also adaptation benefits by accessing additional resources like financing and technology. So we bring those lessons and recommendations to parties through this guidance. The third recommendation is that the NDCs align with and take into consideration complementary agreements or strategies and initiatives that are beyond the UNFCCC, such as other treaties, regional processes, and that kind of initiative. By aligning, again, similar to the previous recommendation, countries can bolster their mitigation options and also access additional resources from those other processes. One example would be the Montreal Protocol with its commitments to reduce hydrofluorocarbons, HFCs. There is an overlap with the work of the Paris Agreement. And although countries do, in many of their NDCs, include references to HFCs, there is still more opportunity to be more specific and reach further into that agreement to support the implementation of an NDC. The fourth recommendation is that countries strengthen their assessment and reporting approaches. As Nathan pointed out, the enhanced transparency framework reporting requirements under the Paris Agreement and also the biennial transparency reports are going to be a very, very important part of this NDC cycle. Important in the sense that there are new obligations for countries that they haven't had to this extent before, and so we help with this guidance to kind of pull that forward, give you the details on what you're required to do as a country, and also suggestions and instructions on how to strengthen that reporting process so that it is supportive of the implementation stage, but also so that each country is fulfilling that obligation fully. The package includes 4 subchapters, kind of standalone, and the one that's most relevant to us today is the methane guidance. In theory, you will be able to take just the methane chapter if you and or your NDC team is focusing in particular on that part, or to bring the stakeholders together to look at that element of the upcoming NDC and work through the recommendations and the guidance that we have there. But there are also chapters on cooling, on integrated climate and air quality approaches, and then on other non-CO2 opportunities such as nitrous oxide. The methane guidance will specifically cover, I'm not going to go into too much detail because of time, but to give you a flavor for the outline of what that guidance chapter contains, background information on what's the basis for including methane targets and actions in an NDC. For those of you who are here today, that's probably all obvious because you are the methane focal points, but this information will help you as you advocate for stronger methane targets and actions and content in your NDC to others in the government and other stakeholders in country when you're working on that part of the NDC revision. Then the guidance includes a step-by-step how to include the target in an NDC's economy-wide target, and what are the steps from information gathering and data collection to assessment and stakeholder consultation, as well as then the analysis and evaluation that will be required in order to reach that target in a nationally nationally appropriate way, because of course there is not one size fits all approach. Every single country is going to have a different needs bases and capacity to do this, to integrate methane in different ways. The guidance is broken down into the 3 sectors, and so again, helping to be more granular in your approach and more tailored to each country's specific circumstances. We include best practices from other countries, particularly CCAC members, but others that have already done specific methane pledges in their previous NDCs, but also gathering from what our experts identify as the potential that can really bring more mitigation and also attract more resources to your countries in order to support implementation. And then the guidance includes process on that cycle that I described. There is a significant part of the process that covers technical support, financing options, and technologies, because implementation is key. We understand that countries cannot make ambitious pledges if they do not have the clarity that those pledges can be fully implemented in the period required. And so financing and technology, we go into different options, challenges. In financing, we do explore a little bit on the Article 6 market mechanism options as well. And just as then to end with a small review, I think Nathan went over this quite thoroughly, even a little bit more, but the guidance does include descriptions and some of the tools and materials that CCAC has developed, as well as other CCAC partners that can help to support all the different phases of preparation of your new NDC and the methane portion of the NDC. We also intend to follow up the guidance with capacity building webinars and have video-based tools to help support the use of the guidance. And Nathan went through the different types of technical assistance that CCAC will be providing along the way. So that's the guidance in a nutshell. And also just to give you a sense of what the timeline is, we expect to be publishing that guidance in the upcoming month. And so you look for the announcement of when the guidance is available. Certainly, each one of you will be receiving a personal message to let you know when the guidance is available online. All right, that's all from me for today.
Thank you very much, Anna Maria. And I think following this, we are a little late on time, but we would like with Nathan to allow a little bit of time in case any of you have any question based on what has been presented by Nathan and Anna Maria. So yes, I'm going to open the floor for any question right now. You can raise your hand and we will unmute you if you have a question. And while we're waiting for any of you to raise your hand, just to say that the idea with the follow-up webinar that are going to happen under this series every 2 weeks is very much to dig into those recommendations from the guidelines for each of the main methane emitting sectors. So we will have one on agriculture, on the energy, fossil fuel energy sector, and one on the waste sector following this one. I'm not seeing any questions from the floor. Let me check the chat.
I think Yobel has a question. They're not able to use their mic.
Okay. Jaria, would you be able, and we have also Marielle Viella. Jaria, would you be able to unmute them, please? You should be able to unmute yourself now, Marielle. And otherwise, I mean, you should be able to unmute yourself now. And if you're not managing, can you please just pass your question again in the chat, because I think we missed it. And with regard to this one, with regard to, okay, so is there a list of contact of people, ministries who are in charge of the Methane Roadmap Action Program and NDCs in all countries? How can civil society reach out to relevant countries' point person to provide feedback or be part of the roadmap development? Okay, that's a good question. I don't think there is such list available publicly. But I think this is also something we can, if Gaia, we understand, as you've mentioned in the chat, have a lot to offer in terms of support to countries in the development of their NDCs. We are happy to take forward this conversation together and also inform countries of this support through our channels. That's definitely possible. Okay, and if there is no other hand raised, do I see any other? I don't think so. Okay, then Jari, I will ask you to move to the next slide so we can close on time. All right, so as I was saying just earlier, our next convening under this Methane Roadmap Action Program webinar series focused on NDC enhancement will be on the 16th of May in 2 weeks, and will focus on agricultural methane. So we will really look at opportunities and examples for enhancing inclusion of methane into NDCs from the agricultural sector. Looking at the recommendation the general recommendation that Anna Maria mentioned, we'll really dig into the concrete aspect of these for the agricultural sector. And you can move to the next slide, Jarir. Thank you very much. And then following this one, we'll have one on oil and gas methane. There will be also a special session on 6th June on natural gas, MRV. And we will close the series with one on waste methane, with a session on waste methane, which will happen on the 13th of June. So I will pass in the chat the registration link for all of these workshops right now. And we very much hope to see all of you participate in these. To sort of end this kickoff, we wanted to do a little reminder that whenever a country joins the Global Methane Pledge, the country commits to maintaining up-to-date, transparent, and publicly available information on their methane policies and commitments. And we very much invite you to regularly share with us information about your Global Methane Pledge implementation progress, including on methane inclusion in your NDC 3.0 and in your methane roadmap and on the development of your methane roadmap or action plans. This will very much help us to keep track of the pledge announcement, and we can also share your progresses with the overall GMP community. I hope that through this workshop, you've understood that we are very much here to support you on your efforts to include methane or enhance methane inclusion into your new NDC. So we very much stand ready to receive any request for support from your side. Do not hesitate to reach out. You can move to the last slide, Jarir. And yes, and we very much look forward to continuing this series with all of you and dig into more of the details and specificities and very practical recommendation on how you can progress on methane inclusion in your NDCs and in your BTRs. Here you have the email of Nathan and myself who are co-coordinating this Methane Roadmap Action Program. So please never hesitate to reach out. With this, I would like to close, unless, Nathan, there is a last word that you would like to have.
No, thank you, Sophie. That was fantastic. Well, maybe one thing, we are very excited to be launching this workshop series, and we hope that all of you will join us for the sector-specific sessions, and make sure that your colleagues, any relevant colleagues, come as well. And do, as Sophie said, make sure to reach out to us. Do not hesitate. We have a lot of resources available, and financial resources that can be moved quickly to support NDC enhancement in the few remaining months that we have left. But that requires active engagement from all of you to make that to mobilize that. So yeah, we hope to be hearing from all of you soon, and we'll be enjoying your participation in the future workshops.
Thank you very much, Nathan. Yes, and as you showed, there is margins for progress still, and we really don't want to miss this very important boat. So yes, we count on all of you, and we'll be here to support. And so see you on May 16. And thank you so much, everyone, again for joining us today. Bye-bye.
Thank you.